sourcing side, we each have either one agency, if it's a large agency, or you might have multiple agencies that you would help assist with their procurement needs. And then I'll pass it over to Michael.
Great, thanks, Karen. Well, it's really nice to see such a great turnout today. I was not expecting this many folks, so that's a true testament to the work of Go-DBE and also those suppliers looking to work with the state of Tennessee. Um, so I am a category specialist on the technology team, and to differentiate myself from Karen, our team works specifically on statewide contracts, which are available to all agencies within the state, as well as local governments, institutes of higher education, and specific nonprofits in the state. So Karen's team, the specialists are each assigned to specific agencies and support them on their specific agency contracts, whereas on the statewide team, we establish those statewide contracts for use by everybody. And then our department is split into three groups. So we have a technology team, which obviously is everything to do with computers, uh, cloud solutions, any of those kinds of technologies, phones, that kind of stuff. We also have a services team, which deals with all kinds of services that state agencies might use, and then a commodities team. So, specific products like bleach or lawn fertilizer, any of those kinds of things. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit about the process of how we select suppliers. I'll speak very broadly in the beginning in terms of the types of solicitations that we offer. And then Karen will go into a little bit more detail in terms of the kinds of documents that are required for responding to those solicitations, and also kind of walk you through some of the key language that we use that really helps you understand how to respond to our requests for suppliers. And then she'll also talk to you a little bit about in addition to kind of the process around the solicitation sort of documents and kind of what you need to do to submit. And then she'll also talk about the things like the broader things like pre-bid meetings, site visits, and some kind of interaction that we will have with our suppliers when we are having them respond to contracts. And lastly, and really importantly, I know this really a lot from having worked now with the state of Tennessee for 3 years, is sometimes half the battle is just figuring out who to call. So she will give you some contact names and tell you the people you need to reach out to, so that you guys can submit your best responses and hopefully secure work with the state. And you can head on to the next slide, Raphael. So the types of solicitations that we generally request, and that I will give you a very kind of broad overview on. There are four that I'm going to talk about today. The first one is RFI, which stands for Request for Information. I'm also going to talk about invitation to bid, or as we like with our world of acronyms, ITB. And then there are two other requests that we make. There's a request for proposals, RFP, or a request for qualifications, RFQ. So I'm going to talk specifically about those four types of solicitations. So the first one, the RFI, is really when we know that we want to secure specific goods or products or services, and we may not be 100% sure like what that's actually going to look like. So we'll have agencies or a wide range of agencies come to us and say, um, they are looking to purchase specific products, but they don't know like how much or what that would look like. And we kind of need to have a conversation with our suppliers. So we'll send out an RFI, and it really helps us understand who out there offers the kinds of products that our agencies are looking for. And then that allows us to be able to, when we're doing a future solicitation, be able to put together documents and requests that are informed, so that we're not wasting your time, you're not wasting our time. And it really helps us kind of have that feedback to be able to to then go out to a more specific kind of solicitation. And Raphael, you can go to the next slide. So I apologize because Karen, Raphael, and I are all in 3 different locations right now. Raphael is controlling the slide presentation, so we'll be commanding him to move our slides around. All right, so beyond RFI, one of the main ways that we solicit our suppliers is through an invitation to bid, and this is really strictly run on price. So this is a solicitation where if I know that I'm buying a very specific product, like I'm again going back to our example of bleach, I know that I need to buy 50 million gallons of bleach over the course of a year, or however much bleach agencies buy. And we're really looking at the best price on that. So we'll send out a competitive solicitation, and we will be looking for the lowest cost bid on that. Um, and y- I'm assuming at this point, and again, it's difficult because we're on this digital platform, but I'm assuming at this point everyone on the call knows what Edison is because you will have gone onto the supplier portal and provided all of your supplier documentation on Edison. But Edison is the state's contract management system, and it's what we use to manage all of our contracts. And our solicitations are run through Edison also. So it allows us to communicate with multiple suppliers. It allows us to evaluate the contracts, and then once the contracts are awarded, it allows us to not only award them but also manage them on a day-to-day basis. So having said that, that means that on our invitation to bid, we do request that all the documentation is submitted electronically. Um, it is 2023, so we do like to, even in the state of Tennessee, so we do like to move that forward. Um, but having said that, physical bids are also welcome. You're always welcome to come to the 3rd floor of the TN Tower downtown across from the Capitol and submit those bids physically as well. And next slide, Raphael. So the next type of solicitation of the 4 that I've talked about, so you remember there is a request for information, invitation to bid, and then request for proposals. So this is where we are looking for a number of factors from the suppliers in order to make our decision. So say, unlike purchasing bleach, where I literally am looking for it needs to be I don't want to spend more than $1 a gallon for this bleach. This proposal, what I'm really looking for is usually around services contracts, where I'm looking for suppliers to say, hey, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do this for you, and this is how I'm going to do it for you, and this is based on 30 years of experience of my firm and the principals in our firm who can do X, who have these qualifications and this experience. And then this is the kind of approach that we're going to take. And at the end of the day, this is how much it's going to cost you. So an RFP is a bit more involved than an ITB. And as such, requires a little bit more time responding. And these are then have an evaluation model which we use. So each RFP will have a very specific evaluation model which we share with our suppliers when they are submitting their RFPs, and then it's reviewed by a number of people within the agency so that it is an objective evaluation based on a whole set of criteria. Um, and then the RFPs that we work with our suppliers, those are sent by email as opposed to going out in Edison. And then we do get those responses submitted as physical, digital things like USB, or again, we can take hard copy responses to those. And then Raphael, if you want to switch to the next slide. So RFQs are similar to RFPs. So again, if you remember, we have RFIs, request for information. We have ITBs, invitation to bid. We have RFPs, RFQs, RFPs, request for proposals. And then lastly, RFQs, request for qualifications. So again, this is something that's a little different than the other requests that we make. And this solicitation is very similar to RFPs, but we don't evaluate the cost so much as the qualifications or the ability of the supplier to be able to provide the goods and services that we're requesting for. And you'll see that RFQs are generally used for helping us identify suppliers who have the qualifications to submit on very specific things. Like, for example, I'm looking for engineers, and I need to know that they are civil engineers with very specific qualifications in handling runway development, concrete slumping, for example. So I need to know that there are firms that are out there that can do that, and we do that through the RFQ process. And again, we do have evaluation models and a set of criteria. Those are reviewed by a team of a number of employees. And again, these are requests that are sent through email, and we accept digital and paper responses as well. And if you want to switch to the next slide. So again, because we're in three different locations, and Karen and I are trying to figure out the best way to communicate with folks on this, I spoke very broadly about those four types of solicitation methods, and then Karen is going to talk more specifically about the kinds of documents that get attached to those solicitations and the kinds of things that you would be specifically responding to. And what I would say just before I hand this off to Karen is, we're giving you a lot of information that you may already know you may be very experienced doing this with other states, other state agencies, whatever. So we're kind of, again, very kind of broad brushing this conversation. But if you have specific questions, please, please, please feel free to email, call either of us. On the contact information that we gave you guys. So thank you for being very quiet while I spoke to you all, and I will pass this off to Karen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. Um, I totally agree with his sentiment. If you all have questions after this, please feel free to reach out to us directly, and we'll try to help you any way that we can, since this is such a high level overview. So quickly moving on to the solicitation documents that would be included in certain solicitations. So more specifically, I'll be going over ITB solicitations and RFPs. But for ITB solicitations, the documents that you will most likely find when looking at the event in Edison is a specifications document, which is a document that is either created by the agency, if it's an agency term contract, or the state for a statewide contract, that will list out all the duties that will be needed from the supplier for the contract. So that'll kind of give you like an in-depth listing of what all that entire contract is going to cover. And then you'll have terms and conditions. So these are state terms and conditions that cover anything from warranties to hold harmless to insurance. All of that is covered in the terms and conditions. You'll have an event details document, and this will be kind of a high-level overview of what the bid is for and how long, and then it will also include bid questions and or factors that the bidder will need to respond to in order to submit their bid in Edison. Those questions, one specifically is just like almost like your signature, saying that you've read all the terms and conditions, specifications, and any attachments, and that you're agreeing to move forward in the process. Some could be if samples are needed, revenue registration confirmation. There's also one in there for Go-DBE, your diversity business plan. Those could be bid factors or evaluation questions. Then you have the evaluation model or cost proposal. Occasionally, these are done outside of Edison, but most likely you're going to see it within Edison. You'll get to a part of your proposal or your bid, sorry, where you'll be able to put in cost for the line items that are identified for the ITB. And then you'll have folder for helpful supplier information. This will give more information on how to get registered with the state of Tennessee, how to put your bid in Edison. It also gives phone number and information for supplier maintenance. If you have to update any of your supplier information, that's there. And then any additional attachments, those could vary depending on the solicitation and what it's covering, but you'll just want to look out for those. Sometimes it could be a map, if it's for a certain location, things like that. So those will vary. And then there you'll see a link for the place on our website, the Central Procurement Office's website, to see where you can find open invitations to bid. So that's also a great resource to save that link and reference it in the future. And just check in periodically if you want to see what all is out there and open to be bid on. Raphael, if you want to change the slide, please. And then moving into RFPs and RFQ solicitations, these are done outside of Edison and usually handled via email with the solicitation coordinator. So you'll have the RFP or RFQ event, and this will include your technical proposal and cost proposal. It'll have information in the RFP document about how to put those together, how to send them to the state, and things of that nature. And I'll go over that a little bit more here in just a second. And then attached to the RFP document will be the pro forma contract. So that's basically the contract that would be getting sent out at award for signature. So that's also important to look over, and I'll go more into depth on some of the terms and conditions that'll be found there that you can look at. And then amendments. So any amendments that occur through the process of an RFP or RFQ are sent out via email to the respondents that have been identified for the solicitation. And this could be as simple as a schedule change because something needs a little bit more time, to if the agency or state decided that something in the terms and conditions didn't cover enough or wasn't specific enough, there might be changes, and then they would do those through amendments. And then much like the ITB, if there's just additional attachments for that solicitation for any reason, additional information or any additional forms that you might need to fill out, those will be identified in the RFP as well. And then in the same location as the ITB opportunities, there's also a link for requests for proposal opportunities that are out there. So there's a link that you can go to on the Central Procurement website that will also show you any open RFP that you might be interested in. So again, that's a really great resource to check in on every once in a while and just see what's out there to make sure that you don't miss anything. So next slide, please. So now jumping into the key terms and instructions for bidding for an ITB. So this is basically the beginning portion of the ITB events details document. And then in a little bit, I'll go over more in-depth, so like the terms and conditions portion, but this is the beginning portion. So first you'll have your event details. This will show you the due date for your response deadline, and then it'll give a high-level event description of what the solicitation is for. And then it kind of jumps into some terms and conditions. And this talks about the solicitation background. So it'll talk about the pre-response conference, when that is, when it's occurring. And usually those are being handled virtually now. So there will be like link information that you'll be able to click on there in order to attend the pre-response conference. There's accommodation for people with disabilities, and then there'll be a section that discusses the written questions and comments deadline. So you want to pay attention to that date because after either a pre-response conference occurs or you have just a written questions and comments deadline, that'll be the deadline for you to issue any questions about the solicitation through the entire process and receive an official response from the state in writing back. So that's a really important deadline to keep in mind. The next portion is the section number 2. It goes over the award criteria. So there could be multiple ways that an ITB is awarded. More often than not, it's single award lowest cost. However, there are a couple of different statewide in particular that are either just a multi-award, so they've gone to multiple respondents. They could be awarded by region, or there could be like a constant compete. So that's an important area to know on the back end what those contracts are going to look like. Section 3 is the solicitation terms. So that goes over the respondent being registered in Edison, clarifications and negotiations that the Central Procurement Office will be able to go through once they're in the solicitation process. It goes over communications. So that would be the solicitation coordinator that's listed in that section. So if you have any questions about the solicitation, that's the person that you would reach out to. It'll give information about how to respond by submitting your bid via mail rather than Edison, exceptions or new terms and conditions, specifications or prohibitions. And then it'll talk about samples. Not all ITBs have samples, but if there's a sample component where they'd be asking you to send in like a product or anything of that nature, that will be listed in that section. The Department of Revenue registration information, inspection of the procurement file, and protest by the respondent. So that just gives further information about once it is awarded, when the procurement file will be open, and then like the protest procedures if that is a option. And then there's a section for the Go-DBE diversity utilization plan that will allow the bidder to input their information and let us know if you are a diverse business. And that is also usually, as I said before, one of the bid factors that we ask. So you would fill out that document and then you would attach it on that bid factor in the solicitation in Edison. So that's an ITB, key terms and instructions. Raphael, if you'll do the next slide, I'll go through the RFP and RFQ solicitation documents and key terms for bidding. So the beginning is the introduction. So this goes through the RFP communication. So again, the solicitation coordinator that you would work with if you had any questions or concerns throughout the solicitation process. It also includes an assistance to respondents who have a handicap or disability. And much like an ITB, it also has a pre-response conference. But one difference that an RFP and RFQ has that an ITB does not is the notice of intent to respond. So that is a deadline that you can provide the solicitation coordinator with your intent to respond to the event. That gives the state just the understanding of how many people are interested. It also gives you the direct contact information. And because RFPs and RFQs are done through email, it's extremely important that we have a direct contact that we can make sure that we get the updates to the solicitation to. So sending in your notice of intent to respond lets us have that direct contact information. So that's a really good sort of stepping stone to pay attention to. And then you'll have the RFP schedule of events. So I'll have a photo of it here in just a little bit, but this is essentially just a listing of all the major events that will occur throughout the solicitation process from the very beginning of when the RFP was issued all the way to when the contractor signature deadline is. So that's a really good reference to have and to look at multiple times throughout the solicitation to make sure that you're hitting the deadlines needed. And then response requirements. So this will talk about the response form and how it should look when it comes back over to the solicitation coordinator when it is um, provided. And then the response delivery, so how it's delivered. Again, we have a email component now, so that's sometimes part of it. It could be mailed to us, or as Michael was saying, it could be brought to the third floor of the Tennessee Tower and dropped off personally. And then the response and respondent prohibition. So this goes over all the things that the response to the solicitation cannot include. So that's a really good list to look over to make sure that you aren't sending anything that is not acceptable by the state. Next, it goes over general contracting information and requirements. So it talks about if any amendments to the RFP happen and what that will look like. Professional license and Department of Revenue registration, just like ITBs, and then any disclosures of response contents that need to be made um, so that we can be aware of those and look those over. And then the evaluation and contract award process. So this takes you through the evaluation categories and how the maximum points that are allowed for each one of those categories. Then it'll talk a little bit more about the evaluation process and the steps that we'll go through for that, and a little bit more about the evaluators and how those are selected. And then it'll also take you through the contract award process and what that looks like. So all of that information is extremely helpful and beneficial to read through. Raphael, if you'll go to the next slide. So now I'm jumping into more of the contract terms and conditions of each solicitation. So we'll start with the ITB solicitation. Um, the biggest thing again is the specifications document. So this document is a detailed listing of what all is going to be required from the contractor for the solicitation and for the subsequent contract. So specifications are extremely important. And then terms and conditions, you'll see this starts with 5 because it's jumping from what I previously was going over that was more about the solicitation, and now we're jumping into the actual terms and conditions of the document. So you'll have section 5 will cover the term of the contract. So this could be 60 months, 24 months, 12 months. It'll spell it out there for how long the contract is planned to last, the term. It could also be split apart to where it's a 36-month contract with 2 options to renew for 1 year each. So it's very important to look that over and know how long the contract plans to go for. Section 6 goes over payment terms, so this will cover either the maximum liability or the estimated liability. Maximum liability are used on agency term contracts because they're not supposed to go above what has been identified. And then estimated liabilities are used for statewide contracts. Since all agencies use them, we don't always know exactly how much is going to be needed, so we give an estimation. And then there'll be information on whether the contract is a compensation firm contract, which means your price is to remain the same through the entire term of the contract, or there could be price change information in there to let you know how that would look throughout the process of the contract term. And then you'll have invoice requirements. So this is just a listing of items that will need to be identified on your invoice and where to send your invoice and things of that nature. Section 7 is the mandatory terms. So this is like if there's a minimum order requirement, delivery, where it's to be delivered, communications and contact. So this is where you'll find both the contractor's contact information as well as the state contact information for the contract manager that will be utilizing the contract and who you would need to talk to during the contract term. And then termination for convenience and cause, assignment of subcontracting, the prohibition of illegal immigrants, the limitation of the state and contractor's liability. It'll go over statewide contract and diversity reporting. And this will also cover insurance. So that's another key point to look at in the terms and conditions. Each solicitation, depending on what the goods or services is for, has a different or could potentially have a different threshold for insurance coverages or different types of insurance. So that's another good one to kind of look over. And then we go into special terms and conditions. So this will go over the authorized users. If it's an agency term contract, we usually don't put a whole lot of extra information in there about authorized users. If it is a statewide contract, that'll have more information about who has the ability to also use that contract. It may cover extraneous terms and conditions or additional line items or options, which is through MOU or a memorandum of understanding. So that's a way that you could add potentially things that were left off at the beginning of the contract that still align with the scope of what the contract is offering. And then special terms and conditions, there's a lot of options that can be added. It just depends on what your specific solicitation or contract is for. So there might be additional special terms there. And then you'll have the Edison line item pricing contract. So that is a separate document that will have information on the contractor, the address, the contract number. It'll talk about how the term of the contract, as well as have a listing, an itemized listing of everything that's covered on the contract with the pricing information. So that'll be the other part of the contract that is involved with an ITB. Raphael, if you go to the next slide.
Thank you. And Karen, we're running a bit tight on time.
I'll
So
hurry.
just to let stream on their section. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So then for RFPs and RFQs, some of the stuff actually kind of goes back and forth. So section A of the terms and conditions covers the specifications or the scope of services, and then warranty. So that's a lot like an ITB. In Section B, you'll have the term of the contract. Section C is your payment term. So again, max or estimated liability, compensation firm versus price increase, the payment methodology, how you'll be paid throughout the contract, and then also invoice requirements. Section D is the mandatory term, so communications of the contractor and the state contract manager, termination for convenience and cause, assignment of subcontracting, prohibition of illegal immigrants, limitation of state liability and contractors' liability, and then insurance. So you'll see a lot of the terms and conditions between ITBs and RFPs are extremely similar. And then you'll have the special terms and conditions, which include additional line items, extraneous terms and conditions. It'll let you know if it's a statewide, and then also a diversity section as well. So there's a lot of similarities between the terms and conditions that occur in an ITB and an RFP. So you can go to the next slide. And then real quick, just about pre-bids, site visits, and questions and comments for an ITB. Anything that pertains to those items can be found in Section 1, and the pre-response conference and question deadlines also are identified in the event details. So just always know to look in that Section 1 for that information. And then for an RFP or an RFQ in Section 1, you'll find the pre-response conference information. And then in Section 2 is where you'll find the RFP schedule of events. So there's that little picture I was talking about earlier where it shows you just item by item. There's items that follow these, but this is just kind of a high level thing for you to see that it'll give you a date and time for any kind of deadline that you need for that specific solicitation. So there's that. Next slide. And then who to contact. So like Michael said, it's really important. And sometimes the biggest thing is just finding who the right person to reach out to is. So first and foremost, the solicitation coordinator, and then second, your Go-DBE liaison. If you have one in particular or one's listed in your pre-response conference, that's the best one to reach out to because they're aware of the solicitation and what it might include. And then your compliance coordinator and federal laws contact. So for an ITB, those contacts can be found in the terms and conditions section 3, communications and contacts. And then for RFPs and RFQs, those can be found in section 1.4, RFP communications. And then also there's a link here that's providing the CPO directory. So this is a great tool as well on our website. If you're looking for a particular agency or you're looking for a particular type of statewide contract, it'll kind of tell you what team they belong to, and then we'll give you their contact information. So that's a great resource as well. And then I believe that is the end. I think I had a slide for questions, but I think, Raphael, are we waiting till the very end for questions?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so thank you everybody for listening to me and hopefully this was beneficial and helpful to you, and I will pass it off to Stream.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, just want to make sure because I'm in the office today, so it's kind of, I'm not used to this setup. My name is Penny DiPiazza. I am the Contract Administration Group Director and the Bidding and Contract Officer for projects under Stream. We run, I mean, our acronyms are the same as CPOs in regards to RFPs, RFIs, RFQs, and ITBs. However, our rules and regulations are totally different than CPO. That's the reason we were never combined with the CPO office, because we have a whole different set of rules and regulations we have to follow. One is State Building Commission, and 2 is contractor licensing law. That's what regulates how we bid our projects. So this is I'm showing you mostly everything I'm showing you today is for construction. There is a different process for designers, but I think most designers have that pretty well under control. So for our contracts, on our contractor's website, which if you go to the state of Tennessee, it's tn.gov, go to general services, and then look up projects for bid under Stream. Okay, and what will be on our website is the construction bid list. That construction bid. Let me see my next. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. Let me go back. On our website is construction bid list, request for proposals, request for qualifications, request for information, and then the bid tabulations. We put those on there once the bids have been finalized. So the construction bid list is updated every Wednesday. There's a downloadable invitation to bid, a direct link to WebEx bid opening. And this is what it looks like when you see a project on our folder. Okay, anything highlighted in blue, you can click on that and get the information that it has. Any of our projects, though, if you want project manuals and drawings, you contact the designer. We don't do those in-house. So the designer would be your go-to person if you want to bid as a sub. And keep in mind, we don't do bids to subs. They're always to general contractors. But if you want to bid your product to a sub, then contact the designer and ask them for a plan holders list. And then you can call the contractors directly and try to work with them to give them a price on your product. But you need to go through the designer because we don't keep that plan holders list. They do. All right. All of our bidding now is done on WebEx. The bids are submitted on Wednesday, and I open the bids in WebEx on Thursdays. Also, we do not have electronic bidding because that is our electronic bidding is over. We have to have oversight approval, and we can't seem to get that just yet. We're working on it. We do not bid anything through Edison. You do not have to even be registered in an Edison in order to bid our projects. Also, a question I get quite frequently is the contractor want to be on a contractor bid list. We don't have one. We don't keep one. We put our projects out there, and they're advertised mostly. A lot of cities have quit doing paper newspapers, but for the ones that still do, our projects advertise on Wednesdays in the legal section of the newspaper, or you can simply go to our website and get the information from there. So if you click SBC to download this is where you're going to get your invitation to bid. This is where you can go in and see the bid opening on WebEx. Caller. This is what our invitation to bid, public notice of invitation to bid looks like. It has the project title, designer contact info, project description, pre-bid date, time, location. Sometimes those are done via WebEx, but it will tell you right here in the pre-bid conference.
Laura speaking. How can I help you?
Bid due date and delivery drop-off info. If you're going to send it by a courier or overnight, you send it to me at this address. If you're going to courier it and somebody brings it to the office, then you drop it off in the central procurement office on the 3rd floor. And here's the date and time you need to do that for getting the bids in. They have to be in by 2 p.m. on Wednesday. And then this is the bid opening date, time, and information to go into the WebEx meeting. Also, if you want to go see plans in a plans room, these are the plans rooms that we use. We use different ones for different regions. Bidding and contract requirements. When you bid, you are required to submit a 5% bid bond or cashier or certified check. We frown upon those because if you do a cashier or certified check, we have to hold those till the contract is executed, fully executed, even if you're not the low bidder. So you're better off staying away from using a cashier or certified check because do a 5% bid bond. You have to be appropriately licensed, contractor's license in law to do this project. Then you may have unit prices or alternates in the project. There is some confusion on unit prices. When you do unit prices, it'll give you how many and what the measurement is, like 100 square feet of, let's say, lumber. Okay, when you do that unit price, then you take that and multiply that, and you add that to your base bid. Your alternates is the only thing that's separate out of it. It's not part of your base bid. Unit prices are. The contract, please note that in the general conditions in the project manual, your insurance requirements will be there. You are required to do a contract bond, which is 100% payment performance bond, and that's in 100% of the contract amount. And you also have to carry builder's risk unless it's a demolition or something odd like that. But most every project we do, you're required to carry the builder's risk insurance in 100% of the project amount. Oh, is that my last slide? I guess it was. Oh yeah, that was quick. But anyway, I just wanted to give everybody a little heads up on how we do things. And like I say, our rules and requirements are totally different than CPOs. And please note, we cannot take bids from subcontractors. We only write contracts to general contractors. So that's something to keep in mind. And I think that wraps this up. I was trying to get through it as quickly as possible. So we'll have a few minutes for a question and answer. So I'm going to turn this back over to you, Raphael.
Thank you, Penny. So thank you, Penny, Karen, Michael, and Alan for being today presenting for us this great information. This time we will be having some time for questions and answers. So if you all have any questions, feel free to write in the chat, or briefly we will unmute and ask your question. Um, we may not get to everyone, so just so you know, but you feel free to contact Go-DBE or the presenters today if you have any particular questions. Okay, so we start questions in the chat. So are there, Maribel is asking, are there real estate asset management opportunities? Yes. Correct, Penny?
Sorry, I got to unmute myself. Yes, it would be on that construction bid list if you go out to the internet. And like I said, if you go to tn.gov, go to the directories, and get Department of General Services, and then there's tabs at the top. There's one for stream, and then if you go down, it'll be for contractors, and it'll take you to that list that has ITBs, RFPs, RFQs, and all that.
Arita Mayers is asking, what is the ITB RFP listings like?
I don't understand your question.
I think she's referring to how they look like, maybe.
Well, if you go to that site, you can see one.
Yes, we have it on our website, on the website that we've been sharing. It shows the listing of what's out there at this time. So feel free to look.
I'll send you this PowerPoint as well. Also, there's a question from Joseph. So for stream, the designer is the prime. No, that is incorrect. The designer is the designer of the project. The general contractor is the contractor we write construction contracts to. We don't write contracts to subcontractors, to construction contractors. We only write contracts to general contractors. And like I said, if you want to place a subcontractor bid, you would contact the designer to get the plan holders list and contact those general contractors directly yourself. There's no method for us connecting to anybody. It's up to the sole responsibility of the subcontractor to do that legwork.
And Go-DBE does outreach events to help you connect with the primes as well. So that's where we kind of come in and assist businesses as well. Okay, we have a question from Jim Derry. My company provides computers and associated products, as well as 3 types of software devices. Would it be impossible to make these available on the state contract? If not, how would I get started in the process? I think this question may be for Michael Gross.
Hey, sorry, you could you just repeat the question for me?
Yes, my company provides computers and associated products as well as 3 types of software services. Would it be possible to make these available on a statewide contract or a state contract? If not, how would I get started in the process?
I would say have a separate offline conversation with me. We do have statewide contracts through cooperative agreements called NASPO, which is a whole other layer that we don't have time to discuss today. But we could. There are ways for us to be able to bring those suppliers on board.
Mhm. Next question, are there any needs for transportation service, examples, passenger vans, VIP transportation?
Raphael, I answered that question.
Oh, great.
Below I put to look at our website for up-to-date procurements. And I
Mhm.
also put in there information regarding our forecast of acquisition. So
Mhm.
that is a document that we publish on July 1st of every year. And that will also show the upcoming procurements for fiscal year 24, which is July 1st, 23 through June 30th of 24.
Great. Yes. And just to know, there are transportation procurements that go throughout the year. The universities procure them quite often, actually. So be on the lookout for those. And they are included in the procurement opportunity website. Um, Himakara Bora is asking, is Stream for contractors? I provide professional services in engineering. Will I be able to find RFPs, RFQs in Stream?
Alan's already answered that below. If you'll go down below, he has given
Yes.
them the website to go to for designers who want to design our projects.
Oh, great. Michelle Lindsay, is there a space for video production services? Yes, Michelle, there is. Throughout the year, there are agencies, even universities, that do procure those services. So the procurement opportunities website is very vast, the types of services and commodities that are available that the state procures as a whole. Okay, Kimberly, Kim, can you provide us with the link for the forecast of acquisitions? They're
Yes, I
asking.
will post that on there.
Okay, any other questions? We still have a couple of minutes if anybody has any additional questions. And keep in mind, this presentation recording and the information on the PowerPoint presentations will be available to you in our In the Know website. And I'll be providing that once again so you can look at it. It should be uploaded by next week. So you can access that, look over the presentation again, the materials as well.
So I did just post the link for the forecast. Once you click that link, you'll see it's the third one down. It says forecast of acquisition. That is the PDF version that is still valid until we upload the new one for July 1st. The fourth link down is a dashboard, and that does allow people to look for the region or area that they're looking for, as well as descriptions. There's a search bar there that is interactive. It should be, for the most part, up to date with the new stuff that will be posted, but just kind of keep in mind that it's not officially for fiscal year 24 till July 1st.
Okay, we have ARCS Aviation asking, our company does AI/ML and VR and AR for the DoD. Can we find some opportunity with state as well?
I can jump in on that one real quick. What I would say is I am not. Um, so the way our statewide contracts work is we get demand. They're demand driven. So agencies come to us and say, "Hey, we have this demand for these specific products." So I would say the best thing for that supplier to do would be to engage with STS, which is the state's IT agency, and establish relationships there with people who might be looking to purchase those products, and then have those agencies either do agency term contracts, which would be through um, someone like Karen, or if it was statewide, would come through someone like me. And I'm happy to have a conversation with that person should they want some contacts at STS.
Thank you, Michael. Any other questions? We still have about 5 minutes left. You can put it in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. And I've pinned the In the Know website for you all to access the link. Again, our previous In the Know meetings are located there, and we will be uploading this current one. You should see it by next week there in the website. Any questions for our speakers, guest speakers? Okay. Well, it seems like there are no more questions from our businesses. Again, thank you all for being a part of today's In the Know meeting. We do have one question. Is there a matchmaking with primes?
No,
Yes.
not with
Well,
us. Well, not with us.
not with Stream, but with Go-DBE, we do networking events, matchmaking with primes. A good way to connect with us with GoDBE is to follow us on social media on our LinkedIn or Facebook. We post our events there as well. We partner with primes such as Turner Construction, Messer, Clark, Skanska, just to name a few of the primes in constructions. So you can look at our upcoming events. If your business is certified, we also send you the notifications for matchmaking events. So feel free to contact us for upcoming events or follow us in social media at the Governor's Office of Diversity Business Enterprise. Go
Raphael,
DBE.
I gotta say, that is an awesome thing you guys are doing with that matchmaking. I was not aware that that was even going on. So that is a really good program, and I really commend you guys on doing that.
Thank you so much, Penny. We appreciate you as well. Um, so we have a question from Ola. Um, in the past, some contracts that I have reviewed required a minimum of 3 or 5 years project experience. For newer companies, are there any available contracts that we can participate in? I don't know if Karen or Michael wanted to
What
jump
type of
in on that.
contract is she asking about, though?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what type
I
of
was gonna say it might depend on what the contract is for. Not all solicitations require a minimum experience. So it would just depend on what it is.
what industry you're in as well?
Yeah.
And I would also say if it's a new firm, but the person who established the firm or the company has that experience in their previous life or gig, then I think that's something that also would be considered as part of the evaluation criteria if that were a requirement.
She's in leadership and development. So I guess that would follow on CPO.
For sure.
Yeah, so it would just be keeping your eye out for opportunities and then seeing what the requirements are that are listed. And then to Michael's point, any like previous work that you've done that would have helped sort of, elongate the time frame you've been in the industry or having experience with that particular good or service would also be beneficial to note.
Okay. So we are about time. It is 10 a.m. So again, thank you all for participating in the know for the month of June. We want to thank Penny, Alan, Karen, and Michael for being our guest speakers. Be on the lookout for our next in the know meeting that will be in July. More details to come in the following weeks. Thank you all for being a part of today's meeting, and you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.